I welcome you to the Senate. We are indeed very pleased to receive you this afternoon. And it has been our tradition here and our convention to grant courtesy visits to our stakeholders so that we are able to hear from you firsthand your stories and how we can be part and parcel of ensuring that our systems work for the benefit of our citizens. The colleges of education in Nigeria, let me say as a subsector in the tertiary education in the country, occupies a very significant and important position, having to produce teachers for especially basic and secondary levels of our education is an important and very awesome responsibility. Because, like you said, Mr. Chairman, in your earlier address, unless you are able to lay a very solid and stable foundation, it will be difficult to have outcomes that are desirable at the highest level, that is the tertiary level. So we are all in this together. We are as interested as you are, because we sit here as representatives of the people of Nigeria. And what the people of Nigeria expect from us is to give them the environment that will ensure that their children and wards are able to receive functional education. So your courtesy visit is well appreciated. I've listened to the issue of law funding. Unfortunately, this has been the bane of federal government developing its infrastructure, whether in the education sector or indeed in any other part of the sectors. This because it is always one thing to produce a budget, and it is another thing entirely to fund it properly, because the implementation of the budget is tied to the revenue that will be generated. In previous years, it has not been easy for the federal government to raise revenues. And in fact, the situation has remained so, but we are trying very hard, both the executive and legislative side of government, to ensure that we get the required revenues in whatever way we can, so that we are able to fund our budgets properly. We are therefore very mindful of the needs of the colleges of education. I want to assure you that we are doing everything possible, particularly for 2020 appropriation year, to get as much revenue as possible to fund the budget. In fact, we are taking extra steps to ensure that the budget is passed in good time. Recently, the budget of the federal government has been a subject of uncertainty, because when a budget is passed well down into the year, maybe probably in the middle of the year, the implementation will naturally go through some challenges. So this National Assembly has decided to work assiduously to ensure that we pass the budget before the end of the year so that the implementation would start at the beginning of the year from January and end in December. We believe that this will give government agencies the momentum to have sufficient time to implement the provisions of the budget. On the side of revenues, we are working very hard to ensure that the 2020 sources of funding for the budget are realized. Actually, today marks a very memorable day in the National Assembly, in the annals of the history of the National Assembly. I've just been told that the House of Representatives has concurred with an amendment bill passed by the Senate on the Production Sharing Contract Act, which gives Nigeria some money for implementing the 2020 budget. This is one amendment that should have been done in 2003. And because of lack of that amendment, Nigeria lost over $21 billion. Presently, Nigeria receives only $260 million because of lack of that amendment. But with that amendment, from next year, by the grace of God, Nigeria will receive at least $1.7 billion annually from 260 million. So that is a big, actually a quantum leap of resources coming into the coffers of the federal government of Nigeria. And that is when crude is sold for $55 per barrel. If it remains at 60, we have the opportunity to even get about $2 billion annually because of this amendment. And we are going to x-ray the other revenues sources, particularly to ensure that the collections, the generation, collection, and remittances are done properly. We believe that we have so many agencies that can do better in terms of revenue generation, collection, and of course, efficiency in remittances. And we believe that government can have more funds, more revenues for us to implement our budget, to develop our infrastructure. So we are going to take into account your complaints. But I also want to advise that you should take advantage of the current budget session, even though today is the last day for the budget defense by ministries, departments, and agencies of government. Today being the 29th of October, we selected 2 weeks for budget defense by MDS, and today is the last day. But I'm sure that majority, if not all the colleges of education, would have defended their budgets before the Committee on Tertiary Education. The Vice Chairman Tertiary Committee. Oh, that's fantastic. Okay, the Vice Chairman Sandy Ono is here already. I know that you will like to have more. It is our prayer that we're able to give more, because we want you to do more. So we are in this journey together of ensuring that the colleges of education perform optimally. But let me also take this opportunity to urge you, as chairman of councils of colleges of education, that we continue to pursue those policies that will make the colleges more productive and more functional. We are facing serious challenges of shortage of teachers, maybe qualified teachers, let me qualify it, qualified teachers. So we need our colleges of education to produce teachers that are qualified. We may be operating under very difficult circumstances, but we should be able to work hard to ensure that the products that come out are products that can help in building the foundation of our education. Because they go to the basic level, they go to the secondary level, and those, like you have pointed out, are levels that are so fundamental because that is where it will start. Of course, the kindergarten may not be at play here, but the basic level, we have serious challenge there. We believe that we have to do a lot, both at federal and state levels, to address the issue of the 11 or 12 or even 13 million children out of school. We cannot play the ostrich. It's a reality that these people are not in schools. We owe them the obligation to give them the opportunity, because education at that level is a right, not a privilege. It's a right we must give them. And if we don't, it's going to be at our detriment, because they can constitute security problem to us, but it's one sure and guaranteed way of destroying the future of Nigeria by allowing the future leaders of this country uneducated or half educated. So we have an obligation to them. The president, about 2 months ago, talked to this issue of children out of school. We have been talking about it. We want to see and ensure the implementation of the Universal Basic Education Act, proper implementation of that act, because that act provides for so many things, but I think we have never implemented it since it was passed in 2004. So we are going to work very hard to ensure that we deal with that. As for the amendment of the bills you have mentioned, I want you to take it for granted that we are going to do the amendments because the colleges of education deserve the amendments to bring them at par with the universities and polytechnics. What is good for the goose? Is it? Is okay. So we will ensure that we do that, and the leadership of the Committee on Tertiary Education, represented by the Vice Chairman, is here. We'll work to ensure that we pass those bills. But the fact that they were presented in the last assembly does not qualify them to kickstart from that level. Our process would have to start all over again. That is how it is, because this is a different set of representation. The chamber is here considered to be a new one. We were inaugurated as a new chamber, and of course our session is the 9th session of the Senate. So we are going to give very expeditious consideration for those two bills to bring the age of retirement and of course the duration or tenure of principal officers. So we will work on that. Finally, let me assure you on behalf of my colleagues that the National Assembly is where everybody should really feel comfortable with. We are not properly understood as an institution, but here we try to do whatever it is that will make our country better and great. We are not simply politicians. We are representatives of the people, and that confers level of responsibility and obligations. And we take these responsibilities and obligations very seriously. We will work so hard by the grace of God. Once again, you can go to the bank, like my brother here will say, that we are going to treat those amendment bills very expeditiously, speedily, to ensure that the colleges of education also enjoy what the universities and further polytechnics are also enjoying. Thank you very much. You are welcome.